Welcome back to another UNC Tar Heels football recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're checking us out on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of football recruiting, Miss Deana King. And Deana, you know, when kids commit, it's always exciting. It's exciting for them. It's really cool when kids make such an important decision in their lives. When you cover a program, it's exciting in covering the program because it's live news, it's breaking news, it's cool stuff. But it doesn't really get a whole lot cooler if you cover North Carolina, or if you're a fan of North Carolina, have an interest in North Carolina, than the number 3 player in the nation committing to play football for you. And that's what's happened. Travis Shaw, the number 3 overall prospect in the class of 22. He's number 1 in North Carolina. 6'6", 325-pound defensive tackle from Greensboro, North Carolina, led Grimsley High School to a state championship here a few months ago in the spring. He has pledged that he will play for Mack Brown and North Carolina. You have been leaning in this direction for a while. And by the way, he chose Carolina over Georgia and Clemson, but it was really sort of a Tar Heels and Tigers battle to the end. Like I said, you've been leaning in this direction for a while. He has made it official. Travis Shaw is going to be a Tar Heel. Your thoughts?
Probably one of the biggest days in Tar Heel football recruiting history. I've talked to you off camera about how big it was for UNC to land Travis, who is also the number 1 kid in North Carolina, and that's always important. But I mentioned back to when Carolina got Ronald Curry, who was the player of the year in basketball and football, to flip from Virginia to North Carolina. I still think Travis's commitment is even bigger just because of who North Carolina beat out to get his services. No disrespect to Virginia, but Travis had it down to Clemson and Georgia, who are perennial CFP contenders, national championship contenders. And when Matt came back, he wanted to put a priority on keeping in-state kids. And at this moment, we still had some guys leave the state. Most Clemson got the last couple with Trenton Simpson and Will Shipley and Peyton Page, but and he made a statement today. He kind of got his wish and finally stopped maybe the bleeding of North Carolina kids possibly going out of state.
Just for a little bit of history here, when Curry committed to Carolina, Mack already had a top 10 team. So that was in progress toward their next top 10 team before Mack actually left. Curry was the national player of the year in both football and basketball. And Virginia at the time was really good. George Welsh had that thing rolling. They were ranked every year, had some awfully good teams back at the time. But I get what you're saying. I also think it's important that this is a guy in the trenches. Carolina's gotten ballyhooed skill position guys before, and that's what Curry was. And by the way, Curry was a starting point guard in basketball. A couple of years later, they won 60 in a row. They were number 1 in the country. And then he played wide receiver in the NFL. So he did his thing. He carved out a nice niche for himself. But Travis Shaw is a defensive tackle. He's not going to do anything else. He's going to get down in a 3-point stance and sometimes a 4-point stance. And his job is to be the kind of beast you need to get to the CFP and have some success in the CFP. Because if you look at Clemson, you look at Georgia, you look at Ohio State, you look at Alabama, they have dudes like Travis Shaw there. Carolina has high-level stuff at the skill positions, and when they flared up before in the past, they have as well. This kid has the potential to be the kind of difference maker that makes people look at UNC legitimately as a potential CFP-type program here in the next several years.
Carolina's getting there. They're getting the pieces. I mean, they're loading up on 4 stars. Now they're in the hunt for the 5 stars. That defensive line, we've been hearing the coaches rave about that. You know, they've elevated the talent. They just need that game-breaking, playmaking, dominant guy inside. And, you know, I think Travis is going to be fit in perfectly. I imagine there was a lot of hollering in the Keenan Football Center when the announcement was made.
So no doubt about that. So you've kind of thought that this was going to happen for a while now. Not a lot of people who cover recruiting really know Travis really well, and I'm not going to say you know him really well. I don't think everybody's had that opportunity, but you've had opportunity to spend time with him, and you kind of know the situation over there at Greensboro. So I would say in the last couple of months, you and I would talk when I'm on my walks, when I'm driving somewhere. You call me at 10:45 at night, just wanting to chat. And inevitably, Travis Shaw comes up, and you have been leaning in this direction for a while with him. Why?
Well, actually, the first time that I interviewed him, he just seemed different, level-headed kid. He was open to everybody. That's one thing about he got offered by everybody in the country, and he treated them all the same. I mean, he come out, I believe, with a top 13 at first, and he included North Carolina A&T, which is Greensboro, the local school, basically in his backyard. And it told me something about him, that he was loyal to his hometown, Greensboro, loyal to his area. And you know, when during the recruiting process, when he narrowed it down to 4 schools there, A&T was there with Carolina, Georgia, and Clemson. So based on me getting to know him and seeing him and seeing things that he did on social media, loyalty was huge for him. He had opportunities to go anywhere he wanted to play in high school. IMG was a possibility, but he chose to stay home in Grimsley. And Grimsley's had some good teams, but here lately, Page and Northern Guilford, that they've been probably the dominant team in the Greensboro area. And Grimsley, he wanted to build something at Grimsley, and he did that. He accomplished that. He helped lead the Whirlies to a state championship this spring. So I think deep down he feels something towards his home, and North Carolina is the home team here, and I believe he wants to be a part of taking his hometown team to the next level, and certainly that's what North Carolina needed, a player of his caliber.
Sort of an addendum to some of the things we've hit on here in the last 10 minutes or so, but the significance of Carolina getting a 5-star kid in 2 straight classes.
Well, they got Tony Grimes, and that was huge. A lot of people think that Sam Howell was Mack Brown's key recruit, and definitely he has helped turn everything around at UNC. He'll be a 3-year starter, but this commit right here is an awful big one, and we'll have to wait and see if that turns out to be, you know, a kid that helps Carolina get to the CFP, and possibly a future first rounder.
In a few years, somebody, maybe we'll do it. We'll kind of do a timeline of significant commitments of the Mack Brown era. Obviously, beginning with Sam flipping from FSU. Grimes was big because Mack's mission to make it the cool place to be. That began when he committed. It went up a notch when he arrived early, and it's continued in the year plus since. Okay, this is a different thing too. This is the cool place to be, but this also I cannot say this enough. I cannot emphasize this enough, Deana. This tells guys in the trenches, you go to North Carolina. It's okay. North Carolina could produce dudes in the trenches that could play at a very high level because they've got one coming in now. And I just think it's significant. You've talked a lot. And I know I'm being a little repetitive here, right? People really need to understand the importance. You get a lot of really talented skill guys out there, but now you've got a 5-star in the trenches. I think that is huge. And I think that's enormous. And I think that will rocket this class wherever it ends up. They're not going to get too many more kids. But when you look at this class, in 10 years from now, the first guy you're going to start with is Travis Shaw. How did he do at Carolina? What did he do in the NFL? And everybody who's watched him, everybody knows a lot about his game, Deana, they think that his future is extraordinarily bright.
Well, I know when I was at the camps, Kenny Browning, who was a longtime high school coach in North Carolina, he's been at Carolina off and on. He was there with Butch, he was there with Fedora, and then Mack rehired him. And Coach Browning's just he's just full of knowledge. And I was picking with him when I was at camp, and he was like, kind of looked at me, he's like, they're getting. My boys are getting like they used to be when back in the 97 and 98 when Carolina could just roll out the defensive linemen. And I know a lot of these kids probably don't remember that, but North Carolina has put some really good defensive linemen in the NFL over the years. I mean, they could almost say D-line U there for a while.
Yeah, if you don't know what she's talking about, go look at the 1998 NFL draft. Look at the first round, and look for a couple of years. There were a ton of studs back then, the Vonnie Holiday types, but none of them were the number 3 overall player nationally. So this is on a different level. This is a huge pickup for Carolina. Travis Shaw, 5-star kid, number 3 overall prospect nationally, and number 1, of course, in North Carolina. He could have gone anywhere he wanted, but he is going to play football in North Carolina. This is enormous for a program that continues to move forward in large chunks. She's Deana King. I'm Andrew Jones. Thanks for stopping by.